Well, I'm Mrs. Voorhees, an old friend of the Christies.
Welcome back to the Haddonfield Horrors podcast, where we review horror movies and horror movie franchises. I'm Mark,
I'm Rudy.
I'm Tawan.
I'm Maria.
and today we're watching Friday the 13th, released in 1980, directed by Sean S. Cunningham, and written by Victor Miller. But before we get into any of that, Tawan, can you give the people a plot summary?
In 1957, a young boy named Jason drowns in a lake near Camp Crystal Lake. The next year, two counselors are murdered. In 1980, a descendant of the original owners reopens Camp Crystal Lake with some counselors' help. The counselors get killed one by a mysterious person. Could it be Jason out for revenge?
Was this anyone's first time watching the movie?
No.
It was not, but it
It
has
was my
been.
first time.
It was your first time, Maria?
Yeah, I've never in my life have seen this movie.
What did you think?
It was good. I mean, I liked it. You know, I liked the whole 80s vibe. It was interesting. It was interesting to watch. It's the best way I can describe it.
So, were you surprised by the ending? By
I
who the
mean,
killer was?
like not really, because I've seen like, other movies that will like reference this movie. I think in Scream, wasn't it, where they like asked the question like who was the killer in Friday the 13th?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but she got that wrong. I forgot her boyfriend killed.
Yep.
Yeah, so I knew it wasn't like, I don't know, I've seen like other media talk about it, so I kind of knew already. Um I didn't know. I think but that's all I knew about it. I didn't really know like about the what exactly the movie was about. Like, I mean, I knew it was in like Camp Crystal Lake, but I didn't really know how, she was going to kill people or how that went. But I did kind of already know that she was the one that was like killing people, and it wasn't him.
My only issue with this movie is for like there's a rule with whodunits. You're supposed to introduce all the suspects at some point. We never saw Mrs. Voorhees until it was revealed that she was the killer. So I'm just like, this is a cop out.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true. And I
what about
thought
you,
the same
Twan?
thing.
What did you think about this movie, like overall? And how'd you feel about it? Question:
So,
did you see this before you saw any of the other movies?
um, no, I am fairly certain. I've always known about Jason just because, being like pop culture and stuff. But I think the first time that I actually like watched the Jason movie on my own was probably Freddy versus Jason when that came out. And then later on, I eventually like watched the rest of these movies, just because I was interested in seeing them. Um, and I'm not gonna lie, this first movie bores me. I'm gonna be very honest. I found this movie like kind of boring, especially rewatching it now. There are like some times where I was like just there, and I don't know, like the suspense for like certain things wasn't always there, and like you said, also like the who done it aspect. Like once you get to the end, it's like okay, like Pamela is the killer, but it just comes out of nowhere. Like even if she was inserting like a couple scenes or maybe like just always at the camp with them or like made it so that she could be a part of the reopening quote unquote and then end up killing them, like that would have been like better than just like have her pop up at the end, because there were a lot of like slashers and stuff back then where it was kind of like unnamed, like or like like a person that we may not have seen, but like they may have been in a movie a little bit, but since she wasn't in it at all, it didn't really add up. And then I feel like, but overall though, I was a little bored watching this one, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I'm not really sure if I liked it all that much.
Yeah, I wanted to point that out too. Like, I didn't. They like mentioned him drowning like twice. That and they never really like, but they like made it seem that it was a curse, that it was a jinx, that it wasn't anybody actually like doing. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you don't hear his name until the very end. You don't see her until the very end. You don't know that his death was, because of counselors, doing their thing until the end. Like it's like you see these people getting murdered, and you kind of just assume that it's some random person, not that it's the kid who drowned.
Yeah, because they don't they mention his drowning in passing like twice, like you said, and the opening kill has nothing to do with him. So how are we supposed to connect that? Oh, your kid drowned, and so now you're batshit crazy. That was like dropped. But what about you, Rudy? What do you think about this movie overall?
I think the movie was a good introduction to the Friday the 13th franchise. Yeah, it was a little bit boring and a little slow for my liking, but then again, we have to understand the action didn't start to like after what, the third part? Whenever Jason retrieved the mask. Was it the second or third movie? Um, well, we started seeing more of Jason
The
versus
third, he gets the hockey
third, right?
mask in the third.
Yeah, so like this one is more like focused on the mom getting revenge on, the counselor from the past who treated him poorly or whatever. So it the atmospheric vibe from it was good. I like the whole camp theory, but it wasn't like spectacular or something out of something that we're already used to seeing nowadays in movies.
You're right. It was a good setup. I mean, they didn't know, but they were gonna spawn like 12 sequels. So yeah, but I want to talk about the big important rules of the '80s slasher movie. Now these rules are a little sexist, but they're kind of the basis for all the Friday the 13th movies. Do you guys know the slasher movie rules?
Don't have sex or you will get pregnant and you will die.
That's from Mean Girls. That doesn't
I
count.
know, I know. But I mean, well, don't have sex. Like if you have sex, you're dying.
Yep. Don't have sex. Don't do drugs. Don't get naked. Don't ignore the crazy locals. Don't go off into the woods. And forget about the car you brought because that's definitely not going to help you at any point.
And don't split up. Y'all gonna die.
Never split up. Why are they split up? That's so fucking dumb. It's strength in numbers, people. We don't need to split up in twos or like threes, but about the rules, I feel like don't do sex, don't do drugs. It's not saying like, oh, you're a slut or you're a whore, you're a pothead. It's just like the one person who isn't doing those things is more aware of like what the fuck is going on around them because they're not distracted by what that guy is swinging or what or girl or how big that girl's breast is. Like that person is hyper focused on what the hell is going on, so she's noticing all her friends are missing, and no one came to fuck back yet. But do you guys have any favorite kills? Rudy.
My favorite kill is the iconic one, obviously. Pamela Voorhees, the mom, at the end. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about it because we haven't even started on
Go ahead.
him, but that was the reason why Friday became so huge. Honestly, is because I don't think anyone was expecting at that time for it to be the mother of Jason Voorhees, and just the whole plot story itself kind of just like wowed the audience. Like, holy shit! Like she took it seriously. She wasn't playing basically about her kid. Like, you're the reason why my kid died, so I'm gonna come out after you guys. And the fact that Alice, right? Her name is Alice, the girl who killed her.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's it.
She seemed like the typical like scrawny. She to me she looked like she was about that life till the end, basically when she killed Miss Voorhees, and that was huge. And that was my favorite kill because it was like the most memorable kill of them all in the series, in my opinion. Um, it might have not been like the most creative death scene, but it definitely like it opened the door to the storyline and to the franchise and why Jason came back to kill the rest. You get me? So that was my favorite.
Maria.
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite was when Alice, killed Mrs. Voorhees. Also, Bill's death was pretty cool when he like You know, when she like, well, I guess not his kill scene. Well, yeah, because you don't really see him getting killed. But she like opens the door and he has like arrows on him. He's like on the door, which I'm wondering how the hell did Mrs. Voorhees like kill like all these teenagers? Like
I
she is so
These
swear,
strong.
strong teenage boys who have muscles, like, come on.
I swear, I say that all the time. I like when I was watching this movie, I'm like, okay, there's got to be a point, because like knowing Miss Voorhees is that strong, like you could kick this lady down. And we saw like she was getting back up with Alice, but come on now.
Especially with like Jack. Like she all she did was ram this like arrow through the bed to him. And I was like, how the fuck?
That's
Like
actually my favorite kill.
That's
I
mine
love,
too.
I love that kill. It just like it grabs him and just like pushes it up. That's my favorite one. That's the most believable one. Everything else, I'm just like, there's no way.
what do you mean? With like Marcy, she just like hit her with an axe. I feel like that was more believable.
Yeah, that and when she killed Steve Christie, she just like killed him above, like off screen with a knife.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's believable because yeah, it caught him by surprise. Yeah, that's believable too.
But
But
then,
yeah, the one with Bill, I don't get that one.
but then going back with the her first like kill of like the main group, that chick in the car. You were that terrified of some old lady?
Please stop.
I would have whooped her old ass while she was driving
No,
the car.
for real. Like, why are you not punching this lady right now?
Like, what the fuck? Like, come
And
on.
then when we get her act like the actual kill of her, like you don't see this lady about to grab a knife, you just gonna stand there. You didn't try to kick her or nothing. Like, come on now. Like
This is
it's
someone's grandmother. Like, whoop this
like
lady's ass.
for real. Like I would get if it was like I think it was Ennis, the truck driver, the
Mm-hmm.
one like I get if it was him. Like yeah, I'll be scared too. That's a big dude. But like Miss Voorhees, like come on.
Do you guys have any scenes that you guys liked, disliked, or indifferent about? Tuan, kick us off.
Um, I think a scene that I did like, which is like one of the more nicer scenes in the movie, is like towards the end when Alice is just on the boat, like right before she gets grabbed by Jason. Like the way it just looks very serene. Like it gives you that feeling, like yes, she won, like she's out, like she's final girl status. And then we do get the part of Jason jumping out, but like right before that, like it looks very serene and nice. I do like that, like just the way that it looks.
Rudy.
I am gonna go with the fact that there's no fucking minorities in this movie. And I know I'm always bringing up the race and shit, but like I know this was set like back in the day, and I don't even think they were like including minorities in movies back then. I could be wrong, but I wish I would have seen more of that because I can't really relate to these people in the movie. Like I just feel like they do stuff that I don't do. Like if I were to go camping, half the shit they do in the movie, I'm like, where they do that? I don't know. That was my thing with my issue with the Fridays franchise was that it was barely any like relatable characters or like characters that I can actually like, and most of these scenes didn't have character development. It was just like a bunch of counselors or whatever. They were out there and camping and whatnot, and I just couldn't connect with anyone even if I wanted to because it was basically them flirting, fucking, playing games and whatnot. Like it's just I don't know. It's for a movie to succeed, especially with audiences, you have to be able to connect with the audience. Otherwise, it's not really, it's whatever. I feel blah about it.
Maria.
I also did like the scene at the end where like, she's in the water and it's like a really nice scene and then he just pops up out of nowhere. Um but like I agree with what Rudy said. Also, I feel like there was like no sex in this movie. There was like two scenes, but then she was like killing people that were literally just like not doing anything. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like was it Ned? Ned wasn't getting shit. Like, he was just there. He was flirting, but he wasn't
Mr. Christie
exactly.
was kind of a pervert. Like, he was definitely being very aggressive towards his intentions with Alice.
Yeah, he was. Like I was like, I had
Yeah.
to watch that scene twice. I was like, wait, I was like, did I hear this right? Like, how old is this girl? Like, how old is this man? And the fact that I don't know, that was it was a very weird scene to me, and I don't understand why it was in there. Um, but whatever, I guess. Um, what else?
I think for me, my favorite scene, only because I know like the behind the scenes, is when Mrs. Voorhees and Alice are fighting, and Mrs. Voorhees slap Alice. Like the actress actually, she actually slapped her.
When we hit somebody on stage, we hit somebody. So I hauled off and I gave her a smack. She fell to the ground, crying, Sean, Sean, she hit me, she hit me. And he came over, he said, no, 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 Betsy, we don't do that in movies. I said, well, what are we supposed to do? He said, you'll miss her.
Like her reaction of being hit in the movie is like her actual reaction, like damn, this bitch just hit me. And then my other favorite scene, because it's funny and it's stupid, is the scene with the cop when he's like leaving, how he goes down by the lake and then does a U-turn to get the fuck out. I'm like, why did you do that? You could have just got the fuck out. And when we first start to notice that Mrs. Voorhees is batshit crazy, and she's like,
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
I was like, what the fuck? This
Oh yeah, she was Betsy Palmer was selling that crazy mom role. She was selling that shit.
right? It was definitely giving me like psycho vibes, which is what they which what in like in the commentary they said that's what they were going for. They were trying to do the reverse of Psycho, and I think they did it because Betsy Palmer is saying like "kill her, mommy, kill her." I will, Jason. I was like, oh shit, but I was still confused because I was like, wait, why does this matter? I'm like, it would have made more sense if one of the people who were killed in the opening was one of her kids because we saw them get killed on screen. But like, she's doing all of this for no, we'll get there when we get there. But anyone else had any things that they liked or disliked or indifferent about?
Uh, yeah, not that I can think of, to be honest. Maybe well, maybe not a scene I like. Maybe just a character choice. The one girl at the beginning, like if she was coming into town to go to the camp, she couldn't like connect with anyone beforehand to get a ride there. Like instead of just hitching a ride, like I know like yeah, back then like people was just doing that all crazy, but like come on girl, you out here by yourself. That's what she you ended up dying anyway. But I'm just saying, bad character choice.
Like, right? We get to the buddy system, but then, like you said, back then, like the way we use Uber is the way what they were hitchhiking. So
Yeah.
also, a lot of people a lot of serial killers found their victims because they were killing hitchhikers. So that didn't turn out great. So let's talk about the characters. Let's start with Final Girl Alice. Maria, what did you think about Alice?
she was okay. Like I just because when I first saw Annie, I thought she was gonna be the main character. Because I mean, she was there in the beginning. You literally see
I thought the
her
same.
hitchhike, but then she just never makes it, and it's like, oh, okay. Alice was just kind of. I mean, to be honest, to me, she was just kind of there. I would not have guessed that she was the final girl. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like the kids or the teens or whatever, they none of them really like stood out to me as like, oh, this one just likes to have sex, but this one is so pure. They were all just like goofing around, having like a really good time together, and it was honestly it was really nice to see actually, that they weren't like putting on a lot of stereotypes on the kids. You know how like some movies they really like let you know like yeah like this girl likes to fuck, but
I mean, this is the franchise that kind of started all that, like the archetype character. So yeah,
well, it was nice to see that it wasn't as like in your face, like, but um, yeah, that it wasn't
two
like in
movies from
your
now it will
face.
be.
Ah, ah. But she was okay. She just, I guess compared to like the other movies we've seen, she didn't really stand out to me. Like I just didn't know where this movie was gonna go, and I kind of liked that.
What about you, Rudy? What'd you think of Alice?
Alice wasn't my, like I said, my cup of tea. She just seemed, she came off as like wimpy, and like she was just there. Like when I finally saw that she had it in her, that she was a fighter and she was tough, was towards the end when she was trying to like escape and fight back and whatnot, especially against Mrs. Voorhees. Um, I kind of wanted a better, or if not, like a backstory period on her. Like, where does she have any family? Like, what is she doing with her life? You know, like, and that's how I feel with all of the characters, even like in the series overall. Like, I don't think that they had any true development. It was just okay. Let's put you out on camping on a camping spree and get killed off. You get me? Like it just, I don't know. I will admit that she was like the winner. Obviously, she beat Mrs. Voorhees at the end, but that's pretty much it.
But she wasn't giving Laurie Strode Sidney Prescott, is what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. She wasn't like the final girl that I would idolize.
Tawan, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with both Maria and Rudy. Like, I think the thing with Alice is like the way everybody just gets killed off so quickly. It doesn't even give you time to like materialize that she is gonna be like the final girl, and we really don't learn anything about any of these people, which is usually fine in like a slasher, but even then, like some of the characters that like we may like know in like other movies, like you may still have something to like slightly go off of to like root for them, like Scream, Halloween, stuff like that. And but with this one, it's just like she was actually just the final girl. Like that was it. There was nothing else. Like she was just the last one left, so um, she was just the last one left, so she had to finish it. And there wasn't anything else with it. It was just straight to the point, which, I mean, isn't an issue, but it also is like, is it deserved? Was it deserved for her to be the final girl? Like,
I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
so.
Yeah, like it didn't feel like it was like she deserved it, but also like like no one wants like the killer to win or whoever, so it makes sense that someone had to put a stop to it, which I feel it could have been anyone in the cast had they used, just a little bit of muscle, seeing as how Miss Voorhees is an old ass lady. But
But also, she didn't stand out from like anyone else. They all were like,
exactly,
they all pretty much had equal time on screen. They all pretty much were annoying the same. She didn't stand out. She didn't have like some. She didn't have something because within the first like 20 minutes of Halloween, you kind of know the character Laurie Strode, and the same thing with Scream. You
mm,
know, Sidney Prescott has a fucked up life. Her mom's dead. The guy's in prison. Her mom is being slut shamed all over town.
yeah.
So it's like Alice is just there. She's just some pale white girl. They were all very pale for them to be in camp in the summer. Like where's the tan at? Like Jesus Christ! But
But yeah, I think that's my thoughts on it. I was like, it wasn't really like anything deserved. She just so happened to like come into the final girl role by actually just being the final girl. Like I don't know.
and then like her reaction to like her in the hospital kills it. She's like,
Then he's still there.
these people who you spent uh, hours with were all just murdered. Your boss was just murdered, and you fucking you were almost murdered. And then you think that you were dragged down into the lake by some dead kid, and you're just maybe he's still in there. Like you need to be flipping out, calling for your mama, calling for God, calling for everybody, calling for the SWAT team. Why are you so calm right now?
I don't know. It was like it was the '60s. They probably would have locked her up and said she was crazy or something.
I would have preferred that. Like, you should be hysterical. You were just almost murdered, and everyone you know, everyone you spent the last 24 hours with is murdered. But let's move on to creepy old Steve Chrissy, who was pretty much responsible for the murders happened because he reopened the camp. Watching this movie as a kid, I thought I not knowing, but like kind of like, oh, this guy, he makes me uncomfortable watching him talk to her. But as an adult, it's like, this guy's a fucking creep. Like, why is he talking to her like this? They never established how old Alice was, but I'm pretty sure she was years younger than him. And that in that like that scene with the interaction was just like, when he was just like, he was like, give me a shot, give me a chance, or something like that. I'm like, dude, like, she already told you no. Like, leave her alone. I, and he was set up to be like one of the red herrings that he might be the killer. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't see it. I don't see it in him to be the killer. I never once thought he could be the killer. I was waiting for him to die because he was a pervert. But what about you, Tuan? What are your thoughts on Steve Chrissy or Christie?
Um, yeah, he was a perv. Like he was like the way he was like touching her in her face and stuff, like adjusting her hair. He was being weird. Like even though all these people are probably like in their late early to mid 20s, they're supposed to be like early teens. So if he's like the head counselor, he's definitely way older than them. So it's weird just by default, regardless of like how they look. Just implications of it are weird, but funny you mentioned red herrings, which I think is interesting for this movie because nobody in the movie gave me red herring vibes, like as to who could be the killer. Like nobody tricked that in my head all like off like, oh, I think it's like either Bill or Jack or whatever. Like nobody gave me that vibe, which is why like the reveal at the end is like, oh, it's someone who wasn't even on the screen. But going back to Steve, at least, why did he like not come back to the camp earlier on? Like you're supposed to be in charge of this. You just like you barely gave these kids anything to do. They fucking
Wasn't he
around.
like drinking at the bar or something?
Yeah, he went to the diner, like, and was drinking and eating and stuff. Like, you've been at the diner for like this all happened in one day, so I don't know what time it was. We just go say it was like 4 p.m. Let's say he went to the diner at 4 p.m. He didn't get back to like I don't know 10. He been going all day for what? And now everybody dead. I mean, it's only him anyway because they opened he decided to open the camp back up. Um, but yeah, like you're supposed to be in charge of this, so like, why aren't you being in charge? Like, you could have sent any of the other like kids out because I think didn't he just have to leave to go to the store or something to like get like materials or something like that, or like stock. He went to go like stock supplies, I think.
Yep, stock supplies. He needed like wood and stuff.
Yeah, so it's like if you're the counselor, the head counselor, like you divvy out tasks, give a task to someone, go tell one of the kids to do it. Like I don't know. Um, it gives like he wasn't really um, doing his role as he should have. But I mean, he ended up paying for it when he came back. Not saying that anyone in this movie like deserved to die, because I mean he was just trying to open the camp back up.
He definitely deserved it. He was a pervert.
Oh yeah, you're right. In that sense, you are right. But in the sense of opening the camp back up, that's nobody's fault.
Yeah, and then the way he died, like, what are you doing out here? And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
What about you, Rudy? What do you think about Mr. Christie?
Um, well, he was definitely he definitely came off as the perv of the movie, or like just a community perv, and I don't have much to say about him. I just think he was added to the movie just to bring in more like uh what's a better term? So like to make him look like the villain or like the bad guy. I think people when they first saw this movie might have assumed, oh, that's probably him. He's the killer because of the way he was acting and his demeanor towards the counselors and all that. So, um, yeah, that's all I have to say about him.
Maria.
No, yeah, he was a creep. Like I just this scene when he was talking to Alice like that, I was like, what the I just I would have liked to know what history they have for him to think it's okay to talk to her like that and for her not to freak out. You know, like is she used to it? Do they know each other? Like what? I don't know. I was just like, what the fuck? Like, do they just work a lot together? I don't know. Like, I don't know who Alice is exactly. Like, you don't know anything about her background. You know enough about his background, but not really about her. Um, and yeah, and I agree. Like, why was he in town for so long? Like, he was when you like cut to him, he's literally in a diner, and I'm like, you could have left so long ago. You could have avoided most of the rain, but no, here you are in a diner. But I mean, I guess whatever. Um, no, I mean he was weird. He was just I don't know. He was just weird. I feel like he was a weird guy, but they all could kind of tell he was a weird guy. And I can see them trying to make him into a red herring, but I also feel like they didn't mention him enough to make him a red herring. If that makes any sense, like it's like they mentioned that he was weird a couple times, but then like that was it. And I guess they just wanted you to be like, oh well, I guess he is kind of weird. Maybe he's killing everybody, but he's not. So
Yeah, you and Rudy definitely said it. Actually, all three of you said it. I feel like this movie definitely suffers from lack of character development, lack of even just telling us who these characters were before they came to Camp Crystal Lake and how they're connected, because we get that there's a history between Alice and Mr. Christie, but we don't know what. Obviously, Mr. Christie knows Pamela, but we don't know how, or like we don't know anything, and I feel like it hurts the movie, and it hurts because you don't really get a chance to get to know the characters before they get killed. Like I feel nothing when she's just like taking them out one by one. They're just people who we saw interact for like 40 minutes before the killing started. But let's talk about the person who warned them all, Crazy Ralph.
You're going to Camp Blood, ain't you? God damn it, Ralph. Get out of here. Go on, get.
And Rudy, what do you
Leave
think
people
about Crazy
alone.
Ralph? Wait, is he even?
Never
He's
come
not even
back
really
again.
crazy. He was right.
Shut up, Ralph.
What do you think about Ralph,
It's
Rudy?
got a death curse.
Crazy Ralph reminds me of fuck, what is that character? I was just because I'm watching the movie in the background, that's why I'm a little distracted here. But Crazy Ralph reminds me of those like super nosy yet smart, and like all he wanted to do was like warn the counselors and like be there and protect them. Who am I thinking of? Now it's gonna kill me not knowing who I'm talking about.
You're
But
probably
anyway,
talking about Crazy Ralph because he was the first one, but they like they a lot of people out of the movies like modeled the character after him.
no, no. Well, I'm like referencing the other character from. Oh, okay. I still know what you did last summer. I don't know if you guys seen it, but like
Yeah, I have.
the man in the hotel that's like he's doing voodoo or something to like protect them. He reminds
I remember who you talking about.
that's who I feel like they take that concept of Crazy Ralph and got inspired by that. Oh my god, I can't speak today. But basically, yeah, Crazy Ralph. I thought he was a sweet man. Honestly, I maybe his appearance kind of like won me over. It's like, oh, look at this cute old little man trying to like be there and blah blah blah. But yeah, I don't really have much to say. Again, with these characters, I feel like there needed to be more development and like screen time for me to actually like them or have something to say. But Crazy Ralph, all I'm gonna say is justice for him.
I mean, Crazy Ralph was justified. What do you think, Maria? What do you think about Crazy Ralph?
you see him in the beginning, and honestly, he didn't really give me crazy vibes. He was just talking to her. He was yelling. I don't know. They just didn't really make him like seem like he was crazy. Like he was just saying things, and I don't know. It didn't seem crazy to me. Um, but then they like so when they were calling him Crazy Ralph, I was like, well, he's just saying stuff. It's not really that crazy until you see him at the camp, and you're like, holy shit, this guy's. And the scene that got me with him was him biking away into the woods, and I'm like, why? are you biking away? Not even on the path, but into the woods. I don't know. That's where I was like, okay, I can see them trying to make him crazy, but I mean, just because a few town folk were like, yeah, he's crazy, he just says things, it just doesn't. It doesn't really come off until like that, until the scene where he's in the pantry. But it just kind of felt like that was just there just to kind of add. I don't know. It didn't feel genuine. I guess like it didn't feel like he was actively crazy. Also, if the camp was Jinx, why would he go up there? I don't know. But I mean, you only technically only see him for two scenes. They talk about him every now and then, so you just can't really get an idea. You just know him as Crazy Ralph because everybody else said he was crazy.
And they said he was crazy, but if everyone just listened to Ralph, actually, if they listened to the entire town kept telling them, "Don't go to Camp Blood. Don't go to Camp Blood."
Okay, and that was the thing too. The whole camp was saying basically what Ralph was saying. How does that make him crazy?
Because of the way he said it. You're going to Camp Blood, ain't you? So they
Like,
thought he was crazy. But
but then
I'm like,
he's not crazy. He's just weird.
everyone is saying, "Don't go to fucking camp," and everyone's telling you why.
I think they just
Like,
confused them for like a creepy old man. You know, the typical kids. They don't want to listen to the elderly and shit like
I
that.
get. I think it was because they dismissed him because he was the town's drunk. But
Yeah,
like,
too.
just
But
because he's drunk don't mean he's stupid.
yeah,
But what about you, Tawan? What do you think about Crazy Ralph?
Man, some crazy always got a little substance to it, and the Crazy Ralph definitely like had that substance to what he was talking about and told him not to do. Um, but yeah, I do agree with all of you saying. Like he wasn't wrong in any of the stuff that he was saying, but of course, like when like you hear certain things for certain people, depending on like how you perceive them to be, like you're gonna take it with like a grain of salt. But in this case, like we know he was completely right in his assessment of what was going on. Now I do agree with Maria. That scene him on the bike going into the woods, that was actually kind of funny because it was just so random. But um, in general, a lot of the like characters they like put that crazy title on in like movies, like in like movies like this, or in general, like most of the times, like stuff they're saying tends to be true.
Well, staying on you, Tawan, what do you think about Mrs. Voorhees?
I mean, was she wrong?
no,
Exactly. I don't think Mrs. Voorhees was wrong in the beginning when she killed the two counselors who were supposed to be watching over Jason.
The counselors weren't paying any attention. They were making love while that young boy drowned.
Because that was like actually them ignoring what happened and letting her son drown. Now, do I think she was wrong with the people she killed in this one? Yes, besides Steve, because he actually facilitated this whole thing. Just, I would say she was wrong because you like, um, she wouldn't know like if these like counselors would be better or what things would be different. Plus, they didn't even know really what happened. They probably just had like a slight hunch and was like told. But Steve didn't tell them any of this. Like if he knew Miss Voorhees, that means he had to know the story, which means he didn't tell the rest of them this. So they couldn't make a decision for themselves, decide to do this or not. But um, Mrs. Voorhees was good because no one would have suspected like an older woman to like be the killer in this movie. Um, which was at the time very like divisive and also different from type of things that we're used to. And as far as slashers go, like some slashers or movies do have like women as the killers, but specifically like older woman that was a little different. And Betsy Palmer, like even though she was only in the movie like at the end, like she sold the fuck out of that like mother role. She sold the fuck out of it. So um, she did really good here, and I like her performance, what we got of it, and also like her final like fights, final fight like couple fight scenes that she had with Alice were nice as well. But they could have used her so much more. I feel if they had planned it out a little better, because I do know when looking into the movie, like they just put the freaking promos out with no script, so they kind of like came together, like literally right, like they just had the title and just put that out, and they came up with everything else later on. I feel if they had included her more, it could have paid off in the long run. And the way I saw someone online put it when I was just looking into the movie more is if like maybe they just had her as like a worker at the camp, which it could have worked. She could have just been there at the camp with the rest of them.
Because I think that's like part of her backstory is that she was at camp. She was like a cook or something at the camp. That's why she was
Exactly.
there. That's why Jason was there. But they didn't like feed into that.
Yeah, which could have been like really easy to like feed into, especially if like because we know Steve knows who she is, but I mean if
She
she
should
had
have
to
been
know.
Crazy Ralph. Now that would have been a twist. Like the person
Yeah,
who's been warning you to not to go to Camp Blood is the one who's killing you at Camp Blood.
that's true. Um, what was I gonna say? So I would say like maybe like when whatever Steve or whoever leaves, um, she could have just shown up and tell like the counselors like, oh, I'm gonna be the cook here. Like I need to get the kitchen ready and stuff like that. I don't know, just something more to add into it so that we could see her in the movie prior to that, and then give it the actual whodunit feel. Because I never, even though it's supposed to like feel like a whodunit, I never got that feel from the movie because to be honest, like I think when I first watched it, I didn't even know. Like I know of like the whole reveal of Pamela was going to be the killer. But if I had never seen this movie in any context, I probably would have thought they just weren't going to show us who the killer was, or somebody was just killing the teens for like slasher purposes. But yeah, so they could have used Pamela more, but she served her purpose in the movie, and Betsy Palmer did a really good job as her.
Rudy, what about you? How do you feel about Mrs. Voorhees?
I love Mrs. Voorhees. Like Tawan said, I think it was justifiable, her actions. I mean, in general, in a perfect world, I think we all, if we were to be parents, would be like we choose our kids over anything. Like I'm a mother before anything. I'm not gonna let these fucking counselors just treat my kid like a nobody. And they were the reason why he drowned and died apparently because the counselors were too busy doing whatever they were doing. And I just feel like it's justice. I mean, nowadays, what do we do for justice? We go and, well, we don't kill people, but you know what I mean. Like in this case, Mrs. Voorhees had a good reason to do it, and I think she was just angry at the fact that she lost her son. I think she was angry at the fact that no one paid him any mind, and he was just bullied and ignored, like as if he was nothing. And um, I wish they would have like made a prequel of Mrs. Voorhees. Where was she when Jason was at this camp when he died? You get me? Like I want a whole backstory on her ass too, because
There is a prequel comic that explains that she was cooking in the kitchen when this happened.
oh, so she was present then.
Yep, she was at the camp. She was there.
Oh, but she wasn't being motherly because I would have been like, son, you're not gonna be by the lake if I'm not there with you. You get me? Like it's like I want to defend her 100%, but for a mother to allow that to happen to her kid, I mean, I guess she trusted the counselors, but you know what I mean. Like I loved her though. I love her regardless. I think that she was the what's that term? The poster child for other mothers out there, and who are willing to do whatever it takes to protect their kid, or if something happens to the kid, they go above and beyond to find justice.
I love Mrs. Voorhees myself, and I think for me, if I was Mrs. Voorhees, I would have been targeting the kids who pushed Jason into the lake and made him drown, rather than focus. Like, yeah, the camp counselors weren't paying attention, but like a gang of kids at the camp are the ones who pushed him into the lake. Like, they made him drown. It's those fucking kids' fault. And I think it would have served better if Alice was turned out to be one of those kids. Like, if she was one of those kids who was bullying Jason, and that's why Mrs. Voorhees left her for last. That would have made more sense. And that's what I feel like is missing from this movie. Because with Nightmare on Elm Street, like, Freddy Krueger is targeting the kids of the parents who killed him. So you know why he's fucking with these kids. Like, Mrs. Voorhees is just killing anyone who steps foot on the campsite. So like, it just, like, yeah, I get it. And she probably lost her mind after her son died, but it's like, if you're gonna get revenge on the right people, and get revenge on the people who pushed your kid into the goddamn lake. And I feel like that's one of the biggest problems I have with the whole series, that they never have anyone, they have never have any of those kids be part of the Jason story. Like, we see a bunch of kids on the dock yelling at him and screaming and laughing while he's drowning, but then those kids are never mentioned or brought up again. It's always about the counselors. So, yeah, she was justified, but her anger should have been used appropriately. She should have had more appropriate targets. But I agree with her. What about you, Maria? How do you feel about Mrs. Voorhees?
I mean, she just came up so like unexpectedly, like in the last couple scenes. Yeah, I don't get why she was like killing people, and like, I mean, okay, I do understand why, but I also don't feel like it's justifiable to just be killing like random kids just because, some kids let your kid die because they were having sex, which I feel like it's a lot of responsibility to put on like teens who, they're still growing. Um, I don't know. She's just, cause like she like the fact that she had to explain herself about like, first of all, who she was. Like, I mean, I kind of already knew who she was because I know about the franchise. But if I just watched this movie, just without any like background, any like context, I would have been like, who the fuck, like, who is she? Like, they've never talked about her. They never talk about Jason. They never say their names. So they're just like, oh, it's you, Mrs. Voorhees. I would have thought she was just some random psycho, you know? Um, and then she just like brings it all together at the end, which I feel like was also kind of like, I don't know, like, what makes Alice so special that you can tell her who you are, why you're killing, and but you just killed everybody else like it was nothing, you know? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And yeah, I would have liked for them to be connected in some way, but they just weren't. Um, like, this movie is just not connected like at all. Like, there's no background to anything. You don't really like get to develop with the characters. So like Mrs. Voorhees just like killing people because of what happened to her son. I mean, she is technically a random psycho. If you really think about it, she's over here, first of all, talking like her son and killing any random like counselor because, well, I guess not really killing the counselors, but just wanting to shut down the camp. Which, by the way, side note, I guess, but like, why would Steve open up a camp where kids have died? Like, I understand the whole jinx or whatever, but like, I'm pretty sure this camp has brought parents in general a lot of like grief. So why would you open that back up? I don't know, whatever. But anyway, but I mean, I do understand why she did it, but it was also just like, I don't know, it just felt so disconnected to the movie. Like, people are just dying through like the first hour and a half. And then she comes along and she's like, yeah, I'm killing people for a reason. it's because like my son died, and you're just like, who the fuck is your son? You know, like you just don't. And like you never even see him until like the very end too. Like you don't see him until the very end when he's basically dead already. And there's no like actual context about him being bullied, or like he like they literally just make him seem like, he's just a kid who drowned because some teenagers were not paying attention, which I also feel like it's a lot to put on teenagers. um I
They're still
mean,
kids themselves.
yeah, like they're still like, sure, they went off and they had sex, but I mean, they're at that age. I mean, it doesn't excuse them doing that shit while there's kids in the fucking, in the lake. Um, but I mean, who here is really to blame? Like, you can't just be pointing fingers and blame someone. And I don't know. I just feel like you kind of like speculate a lot about Mrs. Voorhees, but you don't really like based on the movie alone, and like not even like thinking about the other movies or any background or anything. She is technically just some random crazy lady who's killing kids.
Yeah, it is very disconnected. And again, like if the people she was killing were at least one or two of them were one of the people who were bullying her kids, or were one of the counselors who actually was there to watch Jason drown, like I would have gotten it a lot more. But wasn't the case. She was just there. But speaking of Jason, this is the first time we see Jason, and he is a little boy, and he's alive still. He pops out and he grabs Alice. What do you guys think of this ghostly, animated, reanimated Jason, Maria?
I mean, he was on screen for like 5 minutes. I haven't seen any of the other
Very
movies,
true.
so I don't really have any like actual
Oh
opinions of
no,
him.
we're solely basing off this one. Wait, you haven't seen any of these movies?
The only movie that I saw was Freddy versus Jason.
Oh well, then you're in for this is gonna be different.
But I mean, I guess because like I'm so sorry, but like he starts off. I mean, like the movie starts off as a slasher, and then suddenly you see this animated child, like this ghostly
He's
child
actually
coming out.
he's actually alive. He's basically a feral kid.
What? Now, why would you ruin that for me? Wait, but how though?
That is never going to be explained. But for Jason is alive for in this movie and for the next couple. I will point it out to everyone when Jason is a zombie, but at this point, Jason is alive. That's an actual, like, just a mentally that's just like a mentally deformed Jason, but he's alive.
Then how like long ago was it that he drowned? Like he still looks like a little child.
They never explain any of that because I don't think they actually thought that they were actually going to use him ever again. And the next movie makes it even more confusing. But that was an actual boy. He was alive.
Like I guess. I mean,
It gets confusing.
it definitely sounds very confusing.
What about you, Rudy? What do you think about our first glimpse at Jason Voorhees?
Are we talking about him at the end?
Yes.
Um, so let's start with Miss Jason. I want to know why. Okay, I'm gonna sound like a shitty fan, but
But also, don't spoil it because Maria hasn't seen any other movies.
yeah, so it's kind of hard to have a conversation about it. But I thought the look was good. Like it was like keeping the audience, like me as an audience member. Obviously, I was like, holy shit, I want to see more of him, or like it got you intrigued by his whole persona, like on the screen for that little amount that he had. It was like the introduction, the rebirth, not even the rebirth, but like yeah, the grand introduction to Jason for the following French, movies that are coming up. Um, it did the whole movie justice. It kind of made sense at the end, like when we got a glimpse of him or whatever. But when I first saw this movie, I was younger, so I don't really remember my reaction. But I do know that I was like, it was different. People back then, they weren't really open to like kids or just people in general with disabilities, or how he was just like deformed and stuff like that. So it was intriguing because I wanted to see more. I wanted to see what he was capable of, if he had superhuman powers and all that stuff. So yeah, Maria's up for a she's in for a good trip.
Now, Tuan, what do you think about our first glimpse of Jason? Now, like I was telling Maria, Jason is alive at the end, but that's it. He's not a ghost. He's not a zombie. He is a human. He just has like a mental handicap and he has some deformities. What do you think about our first appearance of Jason? But also, don't spoil it because Maria hasn't seen the other movies.
I don't really, I don't know if I have much thought on it. I guess because it's one of those things that I don't think you can delve into without the other movies like attached to like have like that much of an opinion. Like, seeing it at the end, like even though I knew if I had seen it for like the first time without like any context, that probably would have been like a scary scene because it's like, well, first of all, what is grabbing her? It looks like it looked deformed, but then well, we come later see if that is Jason. Um, is like interesting because basically shows that, like Alex said, like he's been there all this time, and it just gives us that little like glimpse of him in the beginning. But yeah, I don't think there's much I can really say about it now until we get to the other movies.
So let's go to some behind the scenes. Now, this movie was made on a budget of $550,000, and they made $59.8 million at the box office. So they got their money back, which is why we got a sequel. Now, some interesting info. Screenwriter Victor Miller admits that Friday the 13th was essentially a shameless knockoff of Halloween and Psycho. He said that he saw Halloween like 2 years before and he wanted to replicate it and make some money the way John Carpenter did. And he said it was highly inspired by Psycho, and he all he wanted to do was just like switch it, making the mom crazy instead of the son. Betsy Palmer, who plays Mrs. Voorhees, said that she hated the script. She didn't want the job. She only took the job because she needed to pay for her car, and the amount of money that they were going to pay her was exactly the amount of money she needed to pay whatever was wrong with her car. That's the only reason why she took the job. And then she also thought that no one was going to see it and that it was going to make no money at all. And it turned out to be the role that she was most famous for. R.I.P. Betsy Palmer, because girl, you was wrong. Now, do you guys remember that snake scene when they killed the snake, when they chopped it in half?
Yes.
Well, that was a real snake, but they chopped in half, and apparently that snake belonged to someone in production, and he was not aware, but they were gonna kill his snake. He found out
Oh
that
my
day.
god, that's
Yeah,
so bad.
killed this man's snake. Oh, that was bad. When I heard that in a documentary, I was like, no, I would have been pissed. Um, the end scene where Jason jumps out of the lake, the makeup artist insisted they put that in there only because he had just saw Carrie, and at the end of Carrie, there's a jump scene. So,
Oh,
so he wanted to copy that. He wanted a chair jumper moment, and I was like, so this whole movie is pretty much just the writer and the producer and everyone just trying to copy other horror movies. And I think they did I think they did an okay job. Now, the critics' reactions. The Los Angeles Times referred to the movie as a silly, boring, youth youth aged horror movie. The Baltimore Evening Sun referred to the movie as a shamelessly bad film, but then said that Cunningham knows this and it's very sad that he inflicted this onto the youth of America.
That was like back when there was a lot more conservatives, though. They didn't like this shit. Like they were
Yeah,
just like anti-sex, anti-teenagers doing drugs, shit like that. So it doesn't surprise me that they got that.
they were anti fun.
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
The Hollywood Reporter said that the movie has gruesome violence in it, in which throats are slashed and heads are split open, and realistic details. And then some content of Friday the 13th is sick and sickening. The low budget feels, and Paramount will surely be shutting its doors soon if they're going to be putting out movies like this. Flash forward, Paramount is still going strong. Roger Ebert, the famed
Very strong.
very Roger Ebert, the famed movie critic, him and his partner, they had a TV show back in the day where they reviewed horror movies, and they spent their entire show berating the movie and other slashers like it. They said that the audience, they didn't want to watch a movie where the audience would root for the killer, and they hated the movie so much that they ended up spoiling the twist with Mrs. Voorhees being the killer. They hated it that much that they spoiled it for everyone else. Now, but what about you guys? Do you guys cash or pass Friday the 13th Part 1? Twan?
Like, be honest, I probably would pass on the first Friday the 13th. Um, for what comes after, like in the other movies, like it doesn't even give like I don't even think this one really gives even good like that much context for what we eventually are going to get into. Um, so I feel like if I was to tell someone to like watch this series, like they could watch this one if they wanted to, but the first one could definitely be skipped, and they probably wouldn't miss much in the other movies ongoing. So personally, I would pass on the first Friday the 13th. It did do a lot for the slasher genre, though, which I will say. Um, but yeah, just personally, I probably will pass on this one. I don't see myself going back to watch this again. It's a little too boring for me.
Rudy, would you cash or pass on Friday the 13th Part 1?
Although I wasn't a big fan of the first movie, obviously for obvious reasons, I've said it before in the previous podcast. I want to give the new viewers like Maria a chance to watch the movie and have their own perspective and have their own opinion on the movie itself. This one particularly, I am not a fan of either, except for Mrs. Voorhees' scenes. Only because again, it doesn't have any like to one set. We didn't know what we were gonna where we were heading. Like, okay, is it a slasher? Is it like a serial killer out on the loose? Who is this person? Why are they doing it? They don't get into detail till the end of the movie. Then again, the audience is left with, okay, is this the end, or is there gonna be a sequel? But yeah, I definitely would cash it. I want other people, especially the newer generation, who's more used to like the shittier horror movies that are out there right now. They need to get back into the classics to understand where it came from and how much this movie impacted the horror industry and like yeah.
Maria?
I'm actually gonna cash. Um Even though like the movie was really like disconnected, I guess. It was kind of refreshing that you don't have such like strong stereotypes of like characters, and it was nice to kind of it was like a refreshing movie to watch, especially like from it being like a slasher movie. And I mean I liked it. I liked that. I liked that you couldn't really tell who was the final girl, who was gonna die, who was the killer. It was a movie that a lot of things that I was expecting just didn't happen, and I liked it. So cash.
For me, I'm going to have to say pass. Now, Friday the 13th is my favorite all time horror franchise, but not because of this movie. This It's a great start. It sets up nothing. It just sets up Camp Crystal Lake. It sets up the Voorhees family. I want to say the Voorhees duo, but it does nothing else. Like, it's boring. The kills are boring. They're basic. It's slow burn. It's supposed to be a who done it, but see, I just thought we were looking through the killer's eyes. I didn't know we were supposed to be guessing who the killer was when I first saw this. And when I watch it now, I'm still like, it's just the killer's POV. We're not trying to guess who the killer is because there's no one on screen that you would suspect. Who am I supposed to suspect? Alice or Billy? Like, no. Am I supposed to suspect Crazy Ralph? I mean, given that the killer was Mrs. Voorhees, I think the drunk old crazy man could have also been a contender, but whatever. So it's a pass for me. But that's not it. We're just starting our Friday the 13th franchise series. We have what? Oh, 10, 12 movies
We got a
left.
lot of shit.
We got like 10 movies left. And given that I've seen all of these movies, I would say that we have some good ones and we have some bad ones. And this is your first time watching these movies, Maria, and you're gonna see the good ones and the bad ones. And when it comes to the bad ones, you're gonna see that they are really fucking bad. So
I mean, I'm excited. I've never seen like, I'm not really big into like slasher movies, but a lot of these movies are very, they're very I feel like everybody's seen them but me. So, I'm excited.
these are classics. I mean, only thing that's really known in pop culture is Mrs. Voorhees is the killer in the first one, and Jason it takes over. So everything else that you see in the next 10 movies will be a surprise, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's stupid. Where the fuck did this come from? They can do what now?" So it's gonna be an interesting journey, and we're glad that you are all coming along with us. So join us next week as we watch Friday the 13th Part 2 when we finally get Jason and the start of a very confusing timeline because in movie universe, Friday the 13th Part 2 only takes place 2 months. Well, the opening of the movie takes 2 months after the previous events, which is confusing as hell. And you all will see what I mean when we get there. Because again, that little boy who pulled Alice down at the end of the movie was alive, was not a zombie, was not a ghost. But that's all about to get very, very fucking confusing. Thank you all for listening. Goodbye.
You're doomed to stay.
The Haddonfield Horrors podcast is a Letters to Media production.
Should we do an intro?